I think there comes a time for many online content creators and internet personalities where an apology video is necessary to mitigate the damage from some online drama or beef that they've encapsulated themselves in. And most of the time, these apology videos suck.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
In today's video, we will look at a self-confessed child predator who has made an endless stream of apology videos trying to cling on to the ashes of their former success, but instead only pushing themselves further into the abyss. And what is unique about this case, however, is that all of the attention somehow fell on the creators who tried to defend the said predator. Welcome to the story of Synnibear03. Cynthia Totsky was born in the town of Springfield, Missouri in 2003. She grew up in a conservative Christian household where her internet access would be limited. By 2016, Synni had been active on YouTube for a couple of years, posting under the name Scootaloolovessans. She'd found herself interconnected with the growing online art communities on YouTube and DeviantArt, and she became heavily involved with the Sans community, a group engaged in generating content dedicated to the in-game characters from the indie RPG Undertale. And through this connection, Synni had cultivated herself a small but respectable audience who enjoyed the stop-motion storyboards, digital speed paintings, and eventually animations that Synni would produce and share online when her father permitted. However, during these initial years, Synni would find herself at odds with much of the toxicity that she encountered within the Sans community, with other artists and creators regularly attacking, trolling and memeing on one another. Synni sought to set herself at a higher standard and began to position herself away from the community that was her namesake, and instead, she began to dedicate her time to animation meme videos, aiming to appeal to a wider demographic, and this would prove to be a successful move. Synni's channel would grow fast. Her videos started to accumulate millions of views, which is pretty impressive for somebody still in high school, and it is also at around this time that another creator catches Synni's eye. Their name is Birdie. Birdie, real name Jack, is a transgender artist within the animation meme community with a disturbing online history of degeneracy, doxing, harassment and animal abuse. However, back in 2017, Birdie originally posted under the name Damaged Coder 6669, and only 13 years old at the time, was seen as a rising star within the animation meme community, and Synni would quickly develop a fascination, borderline obsession, with Birdie and reposition her channel into the same space. This interest in Birdie would be reciprocated to a certain degree, as Synni would receive a shout out from Birdie and the two would eventually become friends. Synni's own channel would start to pick up some serious traction thanks to her high quality animations and consistent output, and she would reach 100,000 subscribers later in 2017. With this hard work and attitude, Synni was able to position herself very much at the top of rising stars within the animation meme community, and her channel experienced incredible growth throughout 2017 and 2018, and with this success came better access to other creators within the same space, such as Sashley, known as Cushley at the time, the aforementioned Birdie, and their partner HimeGuts, among others. This newfound momentum had clearly pushed Synni's confidence, and she'll begin to experiment with other genres of content, such as commentary.
Today I want to talk about an admittedly kinda old video. It's not actually old, it came out recently, but it was still released like months ago. I found a reaction video, which is actually just a live stream covering Birdie's comeback video.
However, these ventures would do less to further her career and more to highlight her immaturity and eye for conflict, and she would quickly find herself instigating a petty drama with another creator who she had only recently befriended. As far as Synni's commentary videos go, they can be surmised by one word, and that word is painful. It seems honestly quite harsh to be ragging on a 15-year-old's lack of commentary skills, but I think it is more than fair to say that Synni has the charisma of a wet fart.
I knew beforehand that goths tend to listen to alternative music, but I didn't think it was an actual part of the culture.
It was around this time that Synni took shots at the aforementioned Sashley through a comment and accused her peer of tracing other artists' work. Now, in the world of art, tracing over another artist's work and passing it off as your own is an unforgivable sin. Now, Synni's allegations of tracing were credible, however her point was undermined by the fact that she had weaponized her audience against Sashley, stating, "Go and yell at her." Now, in a certain sense, a lot of this criticism can be dismissed by the fact that both Synni and Sashley were just teenagers at the time, and the whole thing was just some insignificant petty beef between the pair. Nevertheless, Synni would come out of the situation relatively unscathed. She and Sashley would hash out their differences in private, at least for now, and Synni's channel would continue growing at a solid rate, but lessons would certainly not be learned. In August of 2018, Synni uploaded a video titled "Same Face Syndrome is Dumb," and within she would address comments made by some of her fans who were accusing her of same face syndrome, which is a phrase used in the art communities to describe artists who rely on a generic mental template of sorts for characters that they design. In simpler terms, they're basically saying her characters all look too similar. The phrase is often attributed to facial features, hence the name. However, it can also apply to body structure, clothing, etc., according to the definitions that I looked up online. I'm not an artist, so if I've gotten this wrong, I really don't care. Needless to say, Synni was not happy about this, and she took a lot of her frustration out on another creator, Sleepy Kink, who had also chimed in on the drama.
Same face syndrome? Doesn't exist. I've been getting on the front page a lot on DeviantArt, so my page has now been opened up to a lot of new people, including very stupid people. And because of that, I get comments like, "Oh, they look too much alike, this is same face syndrome." When it's not. I think a lot of this comes from the friggin' Sleepy Kink video, where he tells everyone, "Oh yeah, you can copy my style, I don't care." And everyone thinks this is same face syndrome, and I'm gonna show you why this is stupid. Same face syndrome was made up by Sleepy King, so everyone will draw the same way he does. You're getting it confused with people who draw adults, children, and elderly, and maybe even animals with the same facial structure. That I've been trying to work on, but these girls are the same age and the same species. They are going to look alike.
Synni would honestly just make herself look pretty stupid in this video, and she clearly hadn't done her research. Her same face syndrome is very much a real concept, and professional artists often go to great lengths in order to avoid falling into the trope. This situation would once again just highlight that Synni wasn't really mature enough to handle the pressure and scrutiny that comes with growing a large online following, and once again, Synni would fail to learn from this mistake and find herself intertwined in more unnecessary drama not long thereafter. Now, throughout all of 2017 and 2018, Synni's channel had grown at an exponential rate, and she had amassed over 300,000 subscribers. However, after the same face syndrome drama, Synni's output and consistency nosedived, and with that, her channel growth had begun to slow. Now, this change in pace could probably be attributed to the fact that Synni was only around 15 years old at the time, and she was probably just busy with school. And she has also explained retrospectively that her family weren't exactly supportive of her aspirations online, even going so far as to withholding her AdSense earnings until she had reached 18. And if you look at some of Synni's earlier uploads, you can see references in the descriptions highlighting the fact that her videos were being uploaded only with her father's prior approval, showcasing that her father was probably concerned about some of the content that she was producing. And her father had even stepped in during the Sashley drama and forced Synni to delete provocative comments. With all of this in mind, she may have also just been experiencing a motivation dip, given that she wasn't exactly receiving any immediate financial incentive for all of her hard work, and her parents were likely just encouraging her to seek alternative career paths, and I mean, you probably couldn't really blame them seeing all this shit go down. In February 2019, Synni would reignite her feud with Sashley in a rant video that I can honestly only describe as deeply unhinged.
Sashley has a bad habit of getting inspired to do the same thing everyone else is doing. Inspired in quotations, because she has gone from taking little things and rolling with them to making carbon copies of other people's animations. Not even generic memes, just everything, even shitposts. Inspiration is not a bad thing at all, don't get me wrong. If you like another artist and want to reference their work because you think it'll improve your art, that's awesome. But it becomes a problem when that's all you freaking do.
Most of Synni's talking points concern inconsequential petty dramas, which could have honestly just been hashed out in private, and she also accuses Sashley of copying trends, which is kind of just ridiculous really, when literally the overwhelming majority of creators online are copying trends to some degree. This whole situation would just once again highlight Synni's inability to learn from previous mistakes and let go of petty dramas, and this time her audience would respond negatively, and her growth as a creator almost ground to a halt. However, this was also in part due to the fact that her productivity had remained pretty poor throughout 2019. And as 2020 rolled in, Synni would rebrand from Scootaloolovessans to the name that she is widely known as today, Synnibear03. Commentary videos and specifically drama content became less of a focus for her, and at least from a YouTube career perspective, things were looking a little better. However, Synni's obsession with Birdie had become completely unhinged by this point, and she would become an active participant in a harassment and stalking campaign committed against another creator at Birdie's behest. And Synni's obsessions would hold no bounds. She would often be found on Discord creating fan art of Birdie and dreaming of contact with him, making dolls and even creating comic book art of her being essayed by Birdie's character. Yes, unfortunately, you did hear that correctly. It is just important to point out here that Birdie was going through a lot of controversy at the time concerning his harassment and stalking of his now ex, HimeGuts. And so he wasn't seen by the community in the best light, and Synni's continued support for him was being noticed. And the creator Evidence Found 01 would make a video about all of this.
Pyro and I have interpreted from dialogue that Synni participating in Birdie's behavior is due to a crush on him. She has denied this several times, but we are inclined to take this with a grain of salt.
The level of harassment that Birdie would subject HimeGuts to would be downright insane, and this would include Birdie tracing over Hime's nudes and sending them to other people without their consent, Birdie spreading false information, stalking and doxing Hime several different times, and this harassment would go on for over 2 years, between 2020 and 2022. Synni herself would participate in the harassment by stalking HimeGuts, venting about them on Discord, spreading misinformation, and playing down Birdie's actions. This disgusting behaviour from Synni and her downright obsession with Birdie would lead to her own friend circle becoming concerned, and they would leak a bunch of Discord messages to the previously mentioned Evidence Found 01, and they would go on to highlight Synni's obsessive behaviour and harassment of Hime, which would lead to Synni in hot water.
Synni says that unicorns stole the character back, but what happened is Synni gave it back but whined constantly about it. They made a vent on their DeviantArt, which was a vague post about unicorns.
Remember that this is witness testimony and, while we say it is true, could be taken with any amount of salt as you please.
You may now pause the video incrementally to read the screenshots provided. They will all be displayed for 10 seconds each.
With all of this now out in the open, Synni would be forced to respond, and she would take her time in doing so. In January 2021, she initially uploaded a video asking for her audience to highlight their grievances with her so that she could make a more reasoned and coherent response at a later unspecified date. This full response from Synni would eventually come in May of 2021, and within, she apologises for her role in the harassment against Hime. She condemns Birdie for his doxing of Hime and provides evidence that she didn't participate in the doxing and actively tried to discourage it.
It's Birdie. That's the reason. Birdie is legit doxing people and you're just letting it slide. I don't hate you. I don't think anyone in your community does. It's just your relationships.
I am not letting it slide. Please don't use my relationships with other people against me to say I support things that I don't. I was never okay with the things Birdie did. In fact, you can see from these screenshots that I openly complained about the doxing. I was too scared to call him out, but honestly, I wish I had, because it was really stupid. I'm sorry I sat by and let him do that when I should have at least talked to him about it. I could have done something, but I didn't, so it is partially my fault. And I'm sorry.
In all fairness, this apology wasn't the worst response in the world. The apology did feel genuine at least, and Synni did a reasonable job of condemning Birdie's unhinged behaviour, and she would cut ties with Birdie at this point, at least for now. Thankfully for Synni, her audience remained supportive and her video was well received by all accounts. However, her inconsistent upload schedule and tendency to get involved in boring, long drawn out dramas had left her channel growth stagnant. She'd achieved 500,000 subscribers in 2021, but that was the final milestone that she would ever achieve, as the years that would follow would see Synni at the centre of far more serious dramas, and a pattern of behaviour would emerge which would eventually lead to her complete ostracisation from the communities she was associated with. 2021 will be a pretty bizarre year for Synni. On the one hand, she was a talented artist and semi-decent animator with 500,000 subscribers, basically the perfect foundation for a successful online career. On the other hand, her obsessive behaviour and online degeneracy was hitting new levels of depravity. Enter the game Friday Night Funkin'. Friday Night Funkin' is an indie-developed rhythm game that was released as a demo back in late 2020, before a Kickstarter campaign was initiated to fund its development into a fully-fledged game, which is set to be released later this year in 2026. But alongside FNF spawned a new fandom of artists, content creators, animators and modders centered around the game's unique art style and eccentric music composed by Kawaii Sprite. Probably not saying that right. Synni was strongly intertwined with this community, and her love for the game would see her reposition her channel, and FNF animations would become the focus of a lot of her content. Now, on the surface, these videos were all fine. Behind the scenes, Synni's depravity was starting to alarm even her friends. Her obsession with a specific specific mod in FNF and its developer Sock had led to her creating a Discord group known as the Sock Gang, where the degeneracy would reach new heights. And with Synni producing many NSFW drawings of Sock in explicit situations alongside Synni's own characters without Sock's consent. What is more concerning about the whole thing is that Synni was fully aware of Sock's discomfort, as evidenced by these screenshots where Synni can be seen bemoaning Sock's rejection of her artwork. Sock would eventually block Synni on Twitter due to her persistence. And what is even worse still is that this Discord group was full of minors. Synni was aware of this because she had only tagged the group as 13+, despite the fact that she was allowing and posting NSFW artwork herself, and Sock was also only 15 years old, whereas Synni was 19. This unforgivable. However, these interactions wouldn't be discovered until long after Synni had issued her apology, and she was able to feign ignorance and avoid heavy scrutiny from her audience, who were once again willing to accept her shortcomings. However, Synni had now set a dangerous precedent for herself, as she had promised to be better and not to let her obsessive gooning habits get the better of her. But as we all know, she would only get much, much worse. Throughout 2022 and 2023, Synni's uploads would become sporadic and she would seemingly lack the focus she had once had earlier in her career, with most of her public online activity now being live streams and commentary videos, with the occasional animation meme video sprinkled in for good measure. But this wasn't exactly what Synni's audience had wanted, and her numbers would begin to reflect this. In 2023 though, Synni would find herself in another minor controversy. She had gotten into contact with a 17-year-old artist by the name of BugSprxy. At the time, Synni was 19, and the two quickly developed a relationship. Now, a 2-year age gap is nothing to cause an uproar about, but it wouldn't be the age gap that would land Synni in hot water, but rather her interactions with BugSprxy behind the scenes and statements she would later make and then be held to account for. In DMs, Synni and BugSprxy would exchange NSFW artwork, including depictions of Sock's OCs and of them farting on one another, among other things. And Synni is also believed to have solicited nudes from the minor. We know all of this because BugSprxy leaked their DMs with Synni in a video released in November of 2023 after a falling out, because of course they did. I mean, one of these big creators got to learn that online relationships are always a fucking disaster. However, nonetheless, BugSprxy's video would leave a lot of Synni's personal information uncensored, and so the video was taken down following a privacy complaint. Nonetheless, Synni would apologise and promise that she would never befriend minors again, which, as we all know, would turn out to be a complete fucking lie. Synni has had a pretty complex relationship with her parents over the years. Their family are immigrants into the United States, and like many children of immigrant families, she grew up in a deeply conservative household where her parents were not fully supportive of her aspirations online. These disagreements would lead to much strife for Synni behind the scenes, with her parents restricting the content she was allowed to consume and produce, and they would monitor her interactions with other online creators to a certain degree, as well as withholding her AdSense earnings until she reached adulthood, much to Synni's dismay. This feud between Synni and her parents would come to a head in late November 2023, when Synni would make a video titled "My Parents Stole $11,000 from Me," where she unsurprisingly accuses her parents of stealing $11,000 from her, on top of other grievances which she alleges, such as her parents giving her a very hard time for wanting to move out of the family home, and in particular they had major concerns with Synni's potential roommate.
I don't know how I'll end up wording the title. Whatever it is, whatever you read, it's true. My parents have robbed me. Although they will strongly deny that they've stolen from me. In fact, they've gotten really, really angry whenever I bring up the fact that they've stolen from me. They don't like the way I word it. They would rather I say, I received consequences for doing things that I did. They didn't steal from me. They went through with their word. I'm spinning the narrative to make it seem like they've hurt me somehow. I'm over-exaggerating and trying to make them look like villains. Let me start from the beginning so that it actually makes sense what I'm about to say. A few months ago, I decided I was going to move out, and I did. I'm currently in my own apartment, and I'm doing pretty good, actually. Other than some obvious financial issues, I've actually been doing pretty good. From the very beginning, my parents did not like the fact that I decided to move out. They didn't think I was ready to move out. They felt like I was just running away again. Running from my problems, in a way. In fact, my dad threw a big old temper tantrum when I first told him. I went to the basement, he was like sorting through papers, and I brought up the idea and I told him I wanted to move out in January. My therapist recommended that I do it, and I really, really wanted to move out. He got extremely mad when I told him this. He started throwing the papers. He told me to just get away from him, go away. On my way upstairs to leave, I heard him just scream and cuss, and it was just embarrassing. Whenever I complain about this behavior, my parents make excuses for it, like, that's an adult behavior, like, he's reasonably angry. It's your fault for making him act like this.
Now, the alleged theft wouldn't come in the form that you may think. The situation related to a car Synni had bought on credit. Her parents deeply disapproved of the arrangements around this and had taken $11,000 from her bank account and paid off the car finance without informing Synni until after the fact, leaving her furious. This had went down after Synni had already moved out of the family home and was travelling in an older family car to collect her new roommate. Now, you might be wondering why this new roommate was causing so much strife. Well, that will be because this person was actually Birdie, who Synni had gotten back into contact with earlier in 2023. Now, Synni's parents deeply disliked Birdie as they believed him to be violent and a bad influence on Synni. Nevertheless, Synni and Birdie had decided to move in together as Birdie had been kicked out of his own home where he had been staying with his grandparents. And after moving in with Synni, he initially kept a low profile. However, Birdie would make his public return to YouTube in 2024, where he detailed his entire history but was careful to obscure or brush over many of his past controversies. Nonetheless, he was heavily supported by Synni and her audience, and the two would regularly livestream together, and from a surface level, everything seemed to be going pretty well. With Synni no longer having her parents to support her, she at least had Birdie. However, behind the scenes, Birdie's chronic mental health issues and the fact that he wasn't working were taking a heavy toll on the relationship, and Synni has since claimed that she was working a full-time job on top of YouTube and streaming in order to support herself and Birdie, which I honestly just find quite insane given that she had 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, but for whatever reason she couldn't seem to convert that into a full-time income. Nonetheless, Synni's reunion with Birdie would spell bad news, and it wouldn't be too long after Birdie's online return that Synni would find her entire online career crumbling before her eyes. In September 2024, 2 Google documents would surface and they made some serious allegations of an inappropriate behaviour with minors against Synni, the first of which contained screenshots and interactions that Synni had had with BugSprxy and demonstrated the fact that the apology Synni had previously made was based on lies. The situation would be picked up by the commentary community, but the backlash wouldn't actually be that bad, as the age gap had only been 2 years and most hadn't seen interactions between Synni and Bug as being that bad. However, the second Google document, which would release the following week, had made far more serious allegations, and Synni would find herself in very hot water. This document would highlight contact Synni was having on Discord with a 14-year-old fan by the name of Eno. The communications had initially started with Eno making numerous attempts to get into contact with Synni, who they had looked up to as a creator. Synni had initially not been receptive to these repeated messages, but that would eventually change and the two would become friends. Now, at this time, Synni was 20 years old, and any contact from Synni with somebody who wasn't an adult at this point was erring on the side of inappropriate. Initially, this contact would start off in a cordial and friendly way, and Synni would state to Eno that she didn't want to become close friends with minors, and Synni's early interactions would reflect this stance, as her replies would be very direct and short, and it seemed clear that she wasn't fully comfortable with the interactions. However, this would quickly change and Synni's behaviour towards Eno would become deeply disturbing. Only a couple of weeks into their communications, Synni would begin to bemoan the fact that Eno was a minor, and so she couldn't share or discuss NSFW topics with them, stating in a Discord message, "Cries, I can't show you my hot and sexy NSFW, waggles my finger." Things would escalate further from here, with Synni going on to discuss topics such as pubic hair and breastfeeding with Eno, and from here the degeneracy would reach full swing, as Synni became comfortable discussing full NSFW topics and sharing NSFW artwork with Eno, and even in one of these messages Synni would issue a warning to Eno stating, "Okay, so this next one is slightly NSFW, just let me know if it crosses a line," highlighting the fact that she was fully self-aware that her behaviour was unacceptable. And to me, this is just completely insane behaviour. Synni is an adult in this situation and leaving the responsibility of NSFW content entirely on a naive minor. From this point onwards, the degeneracy would reach even darker depths, and Synni would start sexually role-playing with Eno and sharing more NSFW artwork on a regular basis. This would include the comic book she had made of Sock's character featuring SA material. Now, I don't want to go into too much more detail surrounding the specific content shared between Synni and Eno because it's quite frankly repulsive and it doesn't deserve to see the light of day. I'm also conscious of the fact that resharing some of these images could be harmful to the victim, and I don't really want to go down that road. Nonetheless, these interactions between Synni and Eno would continue for months, and Synni would be absolutely aware that what she was doing was wrong, even stating in one of her earlier messages, "I forgot you were a baby for a second," and almost suggested something NSFW. Too bad you're a baby. This entire situation is just sick, and once it became known to the public, Synni would find herself at a point of no return, and the initial wave of backlash would actually come from one of the most unlikely of places. On the 15th of September 2024, Birdie uploaded a video titled "My roommate groomed a 14-year-old, I need help." Within the video, Birdie reiterates the information exposed in the Google document concerning Synni and Eno and asks for support from their audience to help them move out of Synni's apartment.
Okay, I have to be kind of quiet because Synni is in the other room because she called in sick from work today. But let me pull up my script. This video isn't gonna be like any video I made before. Like, nothing like this has ever happened to me. I don't even know how I'm gonna format this video. Like, I'm just trying to get this done as fast as I can, because like, I'm like, this is like an emergency, but just trying to like spill my guts as fast as I can so that I can be safe and so that Synni doesn't hurt anyone else. I have a loose script here, but I'll probably ramble a lot due to how emotional I've been, so I apologize for any messy wording or anything, like tangents. Synni's victim compiled a comprehensive document in the description detailing everything that Synni did with them. In all honesty, I still don't know the extent of her actions. Like yesterday on Twitter, I made a post being like, this was before I found out everything. I just made a post being like, hey, don't come for me because I don't blindly support Synni just because we live together and I don't know the extent of her actions. And I said I didn't know the extent of her actions. Well, I still didn't know, like...
This video would have a massive impact within the community. Synni and Birdie's audience had a lot of crossover, and they all very quickly turned on Synni and supported Birdie, though this support wouldn't last for long as Birdie would meet their own downfall not long after this situation. But I digress. Synni would actually respond to this situation in a now deleted apology video titled "I am so sorry," where she would openly admit that she had groomed a minor.
I was going to make a video talking about a recent document that was released about me, but the situation has gotten much more serious as I realize the damage that I've caused. I've been an irresponsible content creator, and I've been acting inappropriately towards my fans. This alone is enough for me to realize I need to make sweeping changes to how I conduct myself and how I interact with my fans. But the most serious thing I've done is I've groomed a minor. I became friends with a 14-year-old after I made a mental note to myself to not become friends with minors again, and I overshared with them. I shared graphic, explicit materials with them when I shouldn't have. I groomed this child, and I knew what I was doing was wrong, and I betrayed everyone who looked up to me. I betrayed my friends. I've done the worst possible thing I could have done, and I'm suffering for my choices. I don't know if I can ever come back to my platform, and it's my own fault. I'm going to seek therapy. I'm stepping away from my social medias, and I'm going to try to figure out why I felt it was appropriate to talk to my fans this way.
This response wouldn't do much to quell the backlash, and the situation would be picked up by the various commentary communities, and Synni would be crucified, to put it lightly. Now at this point you may be thinking that the story is coming to a close. The groomer has been exposed, admitted their role in the degeneracy, and seemed to want to move on from YouTube and leave all of this behind them. However, not everybody was convinced of Synni's guilt, and a group of other creators would take it upon themselves to strategize their defense for Synni and open up a whole new can of worms in the process. As this entire situation was unfolding, on the sidelines a creator by the name of Just a Robot was watching with intrigue. Just a Robot, or Jar as I will call him for the remainder of this video, is a creator who has had a long and fragrant history on YouTube, and for the most part he's been strongly intertwined within the various art communities. Initially Jar had planned a run-of-the-mill hit piece exposing Synni as a groomer and degenerate. However, Jar made the decision to reach out and interview Synni directly, and this would eventually prove to be a catastrophic move. For whatever reason, as Jar was conducting the interview, interview and drafting his video, he began to have a change of heart concerning his assessment of Synni's actions, and he made the decision to change his hit piece into a fully fledged defense. Jar's video on Synni would eventually land, titled the Synnibear03 Rabbit Hole, and it may just be the worst video I think I've ever seen. Jar spends almost the entire video arguing the definition of a groomer and whether Synni actually qualifies as one. He also argues that because Synni didn't commission nudes from the minor and try to meet up with them or had any sexual interest in them personally, that they don't qualify as being a groomer, obscuring the fact that the behaviour from Synni was extremely bad regardless of the legal schematics.
On the one hand, I am happy she admitted to it so fast, but on the other hand, she groomed a minor! I could go over the proof in the doc, but the drama seems like it's already over. Proof of what she did came out, her roommate talked about it, making the situation blow up, and she admitted to it. It's like that one clip from Rick and Morty.
And now, another quick mystery. I just want to know who could have done something like this. It's a travesty. I did. See this knife and all the blood on it? Here's my fingerprints. Guilty. I sentence you to life in prison.
Everybody, including Synni, seems to be in agreement that she's a groomer, but I think a lot of you want me to be as transparent as possible and go over the two really big dogs. I've seen a lot of false information get spread around about this situation, and I want you all to understand exactly what's going on, because let's be honest here, most people aren't going to go through two massive dogs. The only one defending Synni at all is a Kumu, I mean Kumo, and let's be honest here, he's a guy who everybody hates, so if anything, he probably made the situation even worse for her. The guy is an absolute contrarian, and many people consider him to be a troll. Clearly, he's just doing this to stir up drama, but as I was working on my Synni video, I kept on going back and changing a lot of things about it. And once I finished my video on Synni and looked at all the evidence I had lined up, it just didn't feel like a good video to me. I got that same feeling I had during the Pyro drama, the Hopeless Peaches drama, and the Spoctor drama.
In Jar's mind, he saw the situation as similar to the Pyro cynical drama from several years ago. Pyro had been accused of inappropriate interactions with a minor, and the whole thing evolved into a community war between Pyro and Dirty Tom. Pyro would ultimately come out on top due to the fact he could demonstrate plausible deniability, as he wasn't aware of the minor's age prior to the communication starting. Synni did know the minor's age, and so the cases just weren't comparable in any way. Jar also includes the interview that he conducted with Synni. I mean, to call this an interview is a bit of a stretch, as he doesn't really ask that many questions, and the ones he does ask are quite leading, and it comes across like he's giving her a far easier time than she deserves.
Okay, so for my first question is, did you actually look at the docs at all?
The first one, yes. The second one, I didn't get a chance to. It was made, so that Jack could upload his video as far as I'm aware.
Oh, okay,
so I'm pretty sure it came out the same day as me making my, the one that, Eno made, I'm pretty sure, was made on the exact same day that I recorded my apology video.
And Eno is the 14-year-old, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my first question. I looked at the first doc. I desperately looked all over the first doc. I don't see any grooming going. Oh yeah, Synni had her avatar in the sexual poses, and I was like, yeah, have you not seen Naruto or any PG-13 anime? I was so ready to tear into you, and this was the day I was going to upload it unlisted for my Patreon supporters, and it was going to go live tomorrow. But then I decided to fact check one more time just to make sure everything was correct, and I've had this feeling for a while, like something isn't right, and after looking at everything I realized what you did was bad, very bad. If you better thank your vagina. If you had a pee-pee, you would be, oh man, it would not be good for you if you had a pee-pee.
Oh man.
Yeah, but people are more forgiving when women do this. I mean, we've tried so many times with women. Like we gave you guys the right to vote. 10 years later, Great Depression. Coincidence? I think not.
God.
But yeah, I don't think you're a groomer. I think your friend who you lived with for years convinced you that you were a horrible person. You started thinking you were a horrible person, and you cracked underneath the pressure and decided to say something in a video that made you look really, really, really bad. And I'm guessing you didn't fully grasp what the word groomer meant, right?
Maybe he just forgot about it, and then people were calling me a dick writer.
Well, you are that. Let's be honest here. I've seen how much you coom.
Rude, but anyway.
Come on, you're a coomer. You're a super coomer. I've seen some of the stuff you've drawn.
Don't remind me of what everyone's seen. Fuck. All right.
But I'm gonna give you some advice, okay?
No.
You don't want any advice?
Okay, fine.
Okay, number one, you're gonna have to take the L on the way you were talking to the 14-year-old, but you have to make it clear.
Oh no, definitely.
Yeah, you're gonna have to do that. There's no, listen, I had a 14-year-old hey, I'm a big fan of you, and I want to make you happy. And I was like, no, I know where this is going. This is a fucking honeypot situation. No, thank you.
Me, talking about the medical thing, and
Was it a hypersexuality?
If you...
Listen, I'm not gonna force you. I'm not gonna force
I'll say what it is, as long as it's like not gonna make you uncomfortable. Just like I said in the chat that like I can't masturbate. I don't want any of that.
What do you mean you can't masturbate?
I don't feel anything.
And the interactions only get weirder from here.
Yeah, like, can I tell you the worst part about being a guy?
That you have to pay extra for mayonnaise?
No.
Sorry, that's. Oh God, I missed Jack. All right.
Okay, so I'm at the pool, just relaxing. 16-year-old girl shows up in her bikini. I realize I have to get the fuck out of there right now because like I'm not going to be paying attention. I'm going to daydream. I'm going to look in her general direction, and then suddenly a situation is going to happen. So I realize like whenever I see a 16-year-old girl in a bikini while I'm at the pool, I'm like, well, time to go home.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So be thankful that you're a woman.
Yeah, he actually said this while interviewing an alleged fucking paedophile. Now granted, this snippet didn't make it into the final cut of Jar's video. It was later released by the editor of that video. But I mean, come on, what on earth was the guy even thinking? Needless to say, this video didn't go down very well for Jar, and he would quickly take down the video and try to defend himself. However, when Synni and Jar's interactions behind the scenes were leaked, things would quickly take an even darker turn, and Jar's motivations for defending Synni would be called into question. Now, it is also important for me to note here that Jar wasn't the only person who was defending Synni. Behind the scenes, another group of creators, not connected to Jar, were attempting to work out a defense for Synni, and this group and Jar would come into conflict. A creator by the name of Kumo would appear on the live stream of Chud Logic, a British streamer who had covered the entire situation with Synni and had already reacted to Jar's video and heavily made fun of him for it. Now, Kumo would provide Chud with a copy of all of Synni and Jar's DMs on Discord, which were apparently leaked by Synni herself, bizarrely. And the context of these messages would frame Jar in a very different light, as he seemed to be flirting with Synni on Discord and even asking her for sleepy time phone calls.
This is what I'm saying. I don't think you need to speak to the Synnibear person. This is unnecessary. I don't think this is a necessary component to coverage because we've got so much information out there already. It was a mistake to have the conversation in the first place, but then having the conversation in this way is just like mind-boggling. I don't get it. I don't understand the logic and the mentality here of someone with a YouTube channel with 200k subs doing this. I'm blown away by how absurd this self-destruction is. Yeah, maybe he's sexually attracted to her or something, perhaps.
The narrative that would begin to form with Chud and his audience was that Jar had some weird sexual interest in Synni, and Jar would dial into the stream himself and just admit to this and try to provide some justification for his behaviour.
I have no sexual interest in Synni at all.
But you do, okay, actually, let's say that. So, go on.
No, actually, I want to take... No. Okay. Maybe I do have sexual interest in Synni. I mean, I'm a straight guy, come on. So I'm going to walk back on that, but I have a girlfriend. I'm not,
What alarmed many, including myself, however, was the fact that Jar had provided Synni with a false sense of hope and was effectively coaching Synni on how to respond to the situation to minimise her own backlash. And Synni would do just this. She would delete her initial apology video and re-upload a new response where she would take Jar's advice and claim that she wasn't a groomer.
Nothing in the past week has made sense. I was completely convinced that I was a predator and a groomer and that I needed intervention. I'm realizing I might not even have a clear understanding of what grooming is. I believed I groomed a child because Jack told me I did, and I believed him because I trusted him. But Jack doesn't know what he's talking about. I made my confession under duress. I fully believed I was a groomer because Jack told me I was one, but I don't believe that anymore. I am not a groomer. I did not groom Eno. It honestly feels like everyone has their own definition of what grooming is, which is so fucking dangerous. But smart people define child grooming as the act of deliberately establishing a relationship with a child to prepare them for abuse.
As you can probably imagine, this response was met with a strong storm of backlash, and Synni's former fans made it clear that forgiveness was a ship that had long since sailed. And you might be wondering here, if both Jar and Kumo were defending Synni, why were they at each other's throats over it? Well, behind the scenes it appears that Kumo also had some interest in Synni beyond merely friendship, and the interactions with Jar were seemingly making Kumo jealous to some degree. The situation would all come to a head in a live stream uploaded by the YouTuber named Goblin, who alongside Kumo were also defending Synni, and they confronted Synni on her association with Jar and the lies that they believed she had told to them.
Oh my god, you've, treated us like we're, second opinions for you, as if all of us don't have the same fucking goal. If you don't like what one of us says, you go to another, and when they tell you to go to me, you went to Jar. And then, I don't know why or how, but you were like freaking out that I was undermining Jar. And this, I did, honestly, in hindsight, I shouldn't have. I should have just let you go down that path. But you're freaking out that I tried to undermine Jar in your best interest. Like, I knew how this guy was, I warned you how he was, I told you what position you were in, and I was very conscious and scared on your behalf because of what position you're in. Jar could have raped you, and that's probably what he was trying to, that was probably his dream, his end goal. Like, how could he get caught in a cheating scandal or dumped by his girlfriend if nobody will believe it ever happened?
What's bizarre about this interaction is that Synni somehow comes across as the more reasonable one. It seems to me that Kumo is pissed not because Synni acted inappropriately with a minor, apologised, retracted the apology, and then tried to scrape back her audience with a terrible second response video, but rather because she was quote-unquote flirting with Jar to a certain degree. Kumo also seemed to believe that Jar was planning to rape Synni, which I'm not gonna lie seems like a bit of a stretch. Nonetheless, the fallout from this would see Kumo and his little squad abandoning Synni. Jar himself would also take a more critical stance. It's just worth pointing out here that much of the attention now shifted away from Synni, and Jar would be the one who would find himself in the spotlight, with the commentary channels and streamers covering his perspective on the case, and the audience seemed to be fascinated by Jar's downright bizarre behaviour. Now, I won't go into too much detail surrounding Jar, as I already have a video essay covering Jar's entire history on YouTube, including the Synnibear03 rabbit hole. You can find that linked in the description. The situation would kind of just fizzle out heading into late 2024, and Synni would take down her second response video and leave a comment on her community tab stating, "I took my response video down. I don't think it's appropriate to leave it up. I don't think it was right to make that video. It was way too soon, and I was still processing what I had done. And I was extremely emotional about the situation, so I put my energy into the wrong things. I was too focused on how hurt I was and took attention away from the people I had hurt. My priorities had been in the wrong place, and I recognised that. I was too focused on trying to fix everything instead of working on myself and my mental state. I was in no place to make a response video so soon. The people saying I don't care about what I've done or the people I've hurt are wrong. I simply hadn't processed the situation until recently. I realise now that my actions have traumatised multiple people, and I have no way of knowing how my actions will impact them in the future. I genuinely didn't think that what I was doing was hurting them, and the fact I didn't recognise this is definitely a problem I plan on fixing. I have a huge problem with oversharing extremely obscene and grotesque content with people I barely know, one of which being Eno, and that needs to change. I'm in therapy. I'm considering entering a rehabilitation program. I do generally want to make sure I don't hurt anyone else with my degeneracy. I don't want to make any more victims. This isn't me trying to come back to my platform. I just want to make my intentions known. I took down my video because it was awful. I'm done blaming other people for where I am. I'm getting help behind the scenes." Now, this comment will be met with the exact reaction that you would expect. Synni would seemingly move on, leaving YouTube behind, and she's believed to have gotten a real job and made peace with her parents. However, just as everybody felt the situation was dying down, Synni actually returned in March of 2026 to upload a third apology video, and apparently the last. Now, this video in and of itself feels very unnecessary, though I will say that Synni at least seems to take accountability in a better way that she had in any of the previous videos.
I met Eno through another YouTuber, the details of which are not very important. At first, I wasn't very interested in being their friend, and while they were persistent in checking in on me and trying to start conversation with me, I wasn't very receptive. It honestly should have stayed that way. However, we started talking a lot more frequently when my interest became the topic of conversation. This is a pattern of behavior I've only been able to recognize recently. I tended to only really interact with people who would indulge in my interests. Once we started to speak more frequently, I started sharing things with Eno that I reasonably shouldn't have, and it quickly devolved into me sending them explicit content. To be absolutely clear, this did not include nude pictures of myself or Eno. I wasn't attracted to Eno in any way, I just shared a lot of explicit artwork with them and written scenarios.
The problem I guess I have with this video as a whole is that it just feels slimy. It's like it doesn't need to exist. There's literally nothing Synni can gain from this, and it just brings the situation back into light, which can have negative impacts on the victim. That's exactly what has happened. Now, I empathise with Eno in this situation, as they shouldn't really be made to keep reliving their trauma every time Synni thinks of a different way to respond. It just feels very selfish on Synni's part, and the only explanation I can think of is that Synni is trying to regain her audience to some degree. But the reality of the situation is that it's just not going to happen. Once you've crossed the line with a minor in that way, there just can't be any forgiveness. So Synni, if you are watching this video, please don't come back, don't make another response, don't force the victim to relive this experience again, just stay away. Find something else in life that isn't going to put innocent minds at risk of exploitation due to your own deranged sexual fantasies.